Appreciate y'all coming or showing up for the live here. I wanted to do this. I had some time this after evening. I was working on this engine over here, but so we took Rachel. I loaded the video up about 2 o'clock this afternoon. Rachel got her first feature race racing with other people and everything last night, and man, she was nervous. She was nervous as a cat on a hot tin roof, and I was too. I think I'd spooked her a little bit, talking about, just being, like staying back, being comfortable, giving herself plenty of time, to react and everything. And I may have messed her up a little bit. And then I kind of had to start like coaching her back, between the heat and the feature. But anyway, she went out and she ran the heat race. And man, it was a disaster. And it was really what it was, it's like we had done that practice at Camden and she had done so well. But I was in her ear the whole time. And I was talking to her and I was coaching her. I was telling her, all right, pour on some more steam. Come on. All right, but run out a little bit wider here. Hey, you need to brake a little earlier. And so I was just constantly watching her and coaching her and everything. And that one session wasn't enough. I guess in my mind I was thinking, okay, she's got it. No, she didn't have it. But anyway, so we went out there in the heat race, and she dropped way back, and then she was just never throttling up. So like they would take off, and then she was slowly throttling up, and so it was like she was being so careful and everything that she was not putting any speed in the car. And the car was getting no rotation. So the car was never getting the signal that it was turning. It's like when she was going into the turn, she was never really building up speed. And so she was never applying the brake. And she told me, she said, Jason, she said, I was so nervous and so much stress and everything. I wasn't even thinking about, braking and, the throttle and working the brake and trailing in. And so she wasn't braking. And then at the slower speed she was going, the front springs were just never feeling anything. Like that car was getting absolutely no transfer of weight. And so it was horrendously tight. And I didn't even realize it. Like when I was watching that race, I was sitting there right on the corner where they enter, and I was watching it. And the car, so this is something that I'm going to have to learn. It's an aspect of dirt racing. When you're the setup guy or something and you've got a driver, the car looked like it was jumping all over the place. The car looked like at first we'd hit that Ute tire and I changed out that right rear shock, and I had put what I thought was a known good backup shock. I'd put a 4.4, a 50/50 style sealed shock on the right rear. And I knew it was good. And I was thinking, was that shock bad? Did I put the right shock on it? Because I would see the car just look like that it would like just twist and jump, and it was all kind of stuff. And, I was in the pits, me and Rachel were going back and forth. And I'm like, what's going on? Were you on the gas? What were you, the car looked like it was jumping. Were you jumping on the throttle? Was the motor cutting out? And it was just tight. It's like then this morning I'm watching the footage, and it was just that the car was not rotating over onto the nose. It wasn't getting down on that right front. And so I had the car really light on bite on the right rear because I'm wanting Rachel to slow down early and throttle through the turn. But she wasn't slowing down. Like she was never building up enough speed to be able to decelerate and get the car to start transferring, so that you get that motion going. And so like I only set her up with 130 pounds of bite on the left rear, but that 130 pounds, when you have absolutely none of it transfer, laterally across the car, well, it's just not going to turn. I mean, it was just, she would throttle up. And I mean, that's like when you watch in the heat race from in the car and you see her turn hard over and it's just like slowly scrubbing the tires and turning, that's exactly what 130 pounds of left rear bite, with an inch and a half of stagger looks like. Like that's exactly what it looks like. But I'm not looking at the footage at the time. We slowly got there because when she told me, she said, I wasn't thinking about the brake. And then it all started clicking in my head. It was like, Car was never coming down on the nose. Car was never transferring. She was entering the turn, and she was, completely flat. None of the weight had transferred, and she was just bone tight. She was just all the way tight, 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 tight because of that. And so once that dawned, then it was like, okay, all right, here's what's going on, and then I had to go, like, we had to go back to the basics. All right, remember how we drove. We throttled up, then we trailed the brake in. We transferred, we smoothed from one to the other. And anyway, so then we started going through it, and me and her just sat there in the pits going back and forth. Of course, I didn't put all that on film because it gets real boring. But we were going back and forth, just talking about it. I was just trying to, like, calm her nerves and get it in her head, like, this is your number one priority. And, I was intentionally telling her, that she, lay back, give yourself as much room as you need and everything. The thing in the heat that messed her up too with that is that she was laid back, and then it's real easy to get tunnel vision and feel like you need to catch back up. And so she was doing some overdriving the car, so she wasn't going fast enough, but yet she was entering the turn at that speed with the car flat, not over on the right front, so it just wouldn't turn. And and so that was just totally stressing her out. So we kind of got worked through that and everything. But that's a learning thing for me, because that's what I realized. It's like, it's real easy for me inside the car to tell when the car is tight or loose. It is hard to tell watching from the corner of the track, especially if you've got some shadows and stuff. Like the far end of the track, it was hard for me to see her down there. And it was hard for me to tell, that car was tight. Now watching the footage, it's like I can see exactly the tire turned. I can see the front end scrubbing and everything. But in the moment when you're watching her on the track, and you got all these other cars and everything else, and you got the dust flying, it was very hard for me to see that. So this is a process I'm going to have to go through too. I'm going to have to really pay attention to when I'm watching her, watching these races to figure out what the car needs. I got to really pay attention to the tires themselves. I got to really pay attention and be looking at that car, at how high that the bottom of that nose is off of that track, and know what that means. I've got to get locked in on that mentally as I'm seeing her enter that turn, see right where that nose is at. Because a lot of times, I'm not going to be able to see necessarily the tire in the fender according to where I'm at. Like last night, I wasn't in the right spot, but there wasn't a good spot for me to be, because I should have been on the corner at entry, to a turn entry. That's where I should have been, because then I would have been able to see the right side of the car and exactly how much compression, but I wasn't there. So now I'm learning that, like, try to get on an entry corner from, for me. So either being 3 or being one of the two is where I should have been. So I've learned that. Now, when she went back out for the feature, she was throttling up, and then she was coming, she was trailing into that brake. She was getting the car to rotate some. And the car was fine on setup. So she was still tight. And if you look at that footage, you'll see that sometimes she's just turning a little bit, and then sometimes she's really scrubbing over and everything. And I can see where that it's just directly related to speed and everything. And I don't want to change the car. Because I don't want to take, more bite out of that car, in order for it to turn with her off the brake like that, because then that's going to turn around and that's going to slow the car down overall. So it might get more comfortable and she picks up some speed, but then it limits her. She can't get a lot faster because now the car is not balanced like it needs to be. So I think it's where it needs to be. And, I got to challenge her. And when I take her back, it's like we're going to have to really work to try to do just like we did at Camden, where that, you were really pushing that car until you were feeling that scrub on corner entry. That track, it was very different from Camden as far as like it was hooked up. Like I would have loved to have been on that track last night. I would have had fun, but it was hooked up. But I think it messed her up because I took her over there and the track was totally dry and there was a lot of loose powder and they just graded it and there wasn't any water on the track, and I let her go out on the track and it was just totally drift loose. And I think she had that in her head because when she went out there, I told her, I was like, Rachel, you've got to be careful. This thing, you'll go straight to the wall on this loose dirt. She went out there a couple of laps, and I was like, let's load up and go home. It's going to mess you up. But then, see, that's in your head. So I messed her up even taking her to that track with it being dry with no water on it. I should have done that. But we didn't know, and it was just because there was a problem. It was a problem that day. They were trying to do like a test and tuner practice, and everything wasn't working out. Lexington has been down for 2 years, and they're just up. Like last night, that was the first time that track has run, and I want to make sure I don't miss any comments, y'all. Who knows? Said made a big improvement in the feature. The car and her could have passed at least 3 cars in front of her. The car is solid. I agree. There's plenty of car there. I've still got the motor detuned. I'm not going to lie to y'all. I've got the motor detuned. So I've got it down at about 28 degrees of time. I locked my distributors up. I've got it down at about 28 degrees of time. I've got it jetted up. It's 2 jet numbers fat. If you listen real close, you'll hear it popping back in the exhaust just a little bit. It's because it's fat on the jets. But I want the motor to be soft and a little bit saggy. And it's still making tons of power. It would run forever like that, but it's making tons of power and everything. But what it's doing is it's making it a little bit more saggy, where that I can tell her like, hey, get in that throttle, and the car will take it. But like last night, she was very hesitant. That's something I got to really work with her on. We ran on a totally dry slick track, and so like the first time when we practiced a couple of weeks ago. It was like she was walking into the throttle. Last night, that track with my car, when she come off that corner and that car was straight, she could have slammed it to the floor. That car would have gone. It would have gone. She could have run them cars down half straight away with that car that I got. But it's that. She was real nervous to get up next to him. And, of course, me, I'm like, it doesn't help anything. I'm like, don't tear up my car, Rachel. That didn't help anything. I shouldn't have said that. But because now, like, I was watching her, and like there was a Camaro that was in front of her, and he was just really struggling, and so she was just pacing behind him because she was fearful to pass him, and I guess that's good because it kind of gave her that experience of like having to watch out for somebody that's not got good control of their car in front of her and dodge that, and so that's good. She didn't tear up the car, but she got that experience, so I'm glad for that. But at the same time, it's like I was sitting here like, go up there and get with them cars. You're keeping it under you. You're staying in control. But that's not what I said. I said give yourself plenty of room and everything. But now, like when we go back and race the next time, I'm probably thinking, and I'm gonna talk to Rachel about this and see how she feels. But what I'm thinking, hey, we elect to start in the back, but let's not intentionally lay back. And when you see the first car fire. And these cars, when they fire, you fire. You fire. And let's not let a half a track gap out on us. And then we work our way up to speed. Let's try to, I understand, when you're a rookie and you're first starting out, it's like with me, I kind of play this game in my head. When I go to a track and I run, I have to mentally tell myself my setup is right. My car is right. I know how to drive this car. And when that green flag drops, I say I have to make the lap that is the fastest time I will make this race. The first time when I go to the first corner. It's like I have to tell myself, it's a mental game you have to play with yourself. You have to convince yourself you know exactly what you're doing. You've got your car exactly right. Whether it is or not, you do the best you can because that's how you win races. That's how you win 90% of races at street stock level. And a lot of y'all race, and I hope you agree with me on this. If you don't, I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. But 90% of races, you are making the passes that lead to the win in the first lap. Because that hesitation that everybody has, that little bit of doubt, that, that they're not quite sure if that setup change is going to work, or they've worked on this, or that's changed, or this track's different, or, or they didn't put enough water, or it's too much water. Whatever that is, makes them lift a little early, makes them, turn a little short. all of those things. And if you mentally are there, that you know exactly what to do to run that best time, you will sail by those cars. And what's so funny is those same cars will be running you back down at the end of the race. So it really is a mental exercise, and she's nowhere near that. I mean, that's something that you just slowly develop and work your way into. She's nowhere near that. So it's like it's going to be okay, like for her to put on steam over the first couple of laps. But I got to really start challenging her as we get into this, more and more races. It's like, I understand, you got to lay back, and it's like you got to kind of calm your nerves, like get through that first. A lot of times, like if I go to a new track, the first time I hit the first corner, I kind of got to throw through it the first time, to kind of see what's up and how it feels and everything. Well, she's going to have to do that for a couple of corners, and then, we'll start challenging, like, you got to come up to speed. You got to remember your basics, you got to throttle up, throttle all the way up, everything the car will take. You've got to brake, get the clothes down on the nose. You should only slow down to the point that the car is rolling through and you can feel that car scrubbing, and it's like, we got to focus on those basics. It's just we got these added obstacles in front of us now. So I'm really happy with it, but I ain't gonna lie, after the heat, I was a total nervous wreck because I really wasn't reading at all at first what was going on. After the feature, even though the car was still tight, I realized that the car was right and she was starting to do the right things and everything. It's just she needed to put some more speed on, and then just that smoother, break in, so if she was going faster down the straightaway and then pulling it down, she would have been able to kind of, transition out of that brake and back into the gas, and the car would have been down on that right front. I'm running a tie down shock on my right front. It would have kept the left rear, unloaded, and the car would have rotated. So my right front shock couldn't do its job. I've got like 350 pounds of rebound in my right front shock on this Bilstein, on the car. And I mean, it's an inboard shock, but, it's got like 350 pounds of rebound on it. So it's not super strong, but it will hold that car down some. It'll keep that left rear off of it, but you got to get it over there to start with, so the way that we're trying to get Rachel learning how to drive, is for her to brake straight into the turn and then to throttle up as she negotiates the turn. But we still got to get the nose down. We still got to get the car, over on the right front. We still got to get that weight, that left rear bite. You got to get it up off the left rear. So we got some fundamentals there, and she really picked up in the feature. So I was super happy about that. All right, what we got going on here? Seat time, a big improvement in the, hang on, y'all. Let me see. So seat time will help her most. Car sounded great through the pits. Yeah, I'm very happy with that engine. That engine, y'all, and you saw me build that engine. That's about a $500 rebuild, and it's at about 4.064, 63 or 64. I opened her up pretty good. And anyway, but she put some file fit rings in it and new bearings, and I mean, it sounds great. It's running great. We're gonna run that sucker now. It's done. When she blows this time, she's done. But I bet I get a couple seasons out of it. And Tommy Hitt said, "I've always told new drivers that you can drive slower and the car will go faster." Say it again, because that is so right. That's what. Because that, and I think that was in there. Like, I think that was in the video when I, how it is on the edit floor. The video today was 23 minutes. Y'all, I got up at 6 o'clock this morning, and I was editing till 12 because I had like 3 or 4 hours of video. Because I got in car, I got outside the track, I've got all the time in the pits and everything. So, it was like, and I somewhere in there, I don't know if it made the video or whatever, but we were talking about, like, Rachel, just slow down. Just slow down, it's like just, your throttle up and then brake. If you, it's like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about where the cars are. Get that rhythm going like we had at Camden. Speed up down the straightaway, and then, halfway down the straightaway, start slowing back down. And she was working on it. She was doing it. And I told her, I said, "Girl, you keep that foot over the brake and you work them just like you did when we went to practice." But you do. I 100% agree with that. That's something Mr. J. Neal with BSB, he talked to me about back in the winter. was that, the way that like driving way deep into the turn and, a lot of the things I was doing and I was keeping up, but that was all. And, he was like, you've got to, with the setups now and the type of shock package, that I'm helping you with, the springs that, he's, telling me that I need to run. He's like, you've got to straight line, slow this car down, straight, and then accelerate all the way through the turn. And he's like, and if you run way off down into that turn trying to catch them, and you wash out, well, then none of the rest of that's happening. And you got to slow down to speed up. It is so true. But that is the recap from the race. And she has got to take off and go to Ohio next weekend. So not going to get to run the Camaro. And Kim was like, just put your seat in it, Jason. And, go. And I'm like, nope. Because if I did that and fit in there any kind of way, I would destroy that car and I would never forgive myself. Nope, ain't going to do it. That's her car. And, but I tell you, I was like, man, I could get in this car tonight. I could wear them out. but so it's a little, it's watching from the outside, it's like, I need a car here bad. But anyway, what was that? And who knows, said, always great content. Nobody's going to learn it in the first race. That's true. I always talk to myself to not overdrive the corner. I do the same thing. I absolutely do the same thing. And, Alex, I appreciate it, but I'm going to tell y'all, like, I have never helped anybody race before. And y'all know the way it is. Like, like us, we're grassroots and just starting. And like, I'm like, building the cars. I went back to cool cars and I just explained why I'm doing what I'm doing. Me walking through coaching Rachel like I am, I'm trying to be completely honest about it because like I'm telling you, when I was watching that heat race last night, I'm like, what the hell is wrong with her? I mean, it's like, that's what I'm thinking. It's like, what, and I could not understand watching the car, what it was doing. And I watch the footage in the car and, and I'm like, oh, I know exactly what it is. And if I could have just, went straight to that last night, I could have helped her from getting as upset, as frustrated, and everything. And so I've got a learning curve to go through coaching as well. I am not coaching as well as I could be. I've never done it before. So I got a ways to go too. But what else we got here? And you have to learn to win. It doesn't just happen. I agree with that 100%. She and you are going to be fine. I hope so. I hope we're going to be all right with this. It's like I told her last night. I'm like, we're going to tear the car up. We might not tear it up tonight. I'm like, but it's going to get tore up. I'm like, so don't worry about it. I'm like, I'm not going to be mad. It's going to happen. And so I'm going to have to, when we go to the next race, I'm going to be like, look, I know they may wad up and I know you may get piled all up in the middle of it. And if it happens, it happens. But I need you to like not drop back more than 2 car lengths. And I need you to go when they go. And if a gap opens up because you're not comfortable enough or whatever, that's fine. But I need you to start like, it's okay. Like, I want you to be closer to them. And like, I'm going to start trying to progress her like that. And then, and it's so, we're going to do that. And then the other thing is that, it's like, it's okay. Rubbin's racing, and so like, if you've got somebody, it's like, we had a car last night and, he would go in and I don't know where you start trying to coach somebody to do this, because he would go into turn 1 at the very top, and he would be all the way at the bottom when he would come out of turn 2. He'd be all the way, and jockeying the whole way. And for if you've been racing and somebody's doing that, you should get on the inside line, and when you go into that turn, that's your line. And if they come down and they want to, check out what your right side, door feels like, I mean, there it is. You can get you a taste of it. But, it's like, if you're going to leave the line open, I mean, somebody's going to take the whole track up. you pick a line and you have to hold it. And that's it's like you can't pass cars until you get that. And, I don't know, where do we put that on? That may not be in the next race. The next race may be that let's not let a gap open up on us. Let's not let a gap open up on us. Let's focus on keeping that gap closed up. Somebody makes a bobble, somebody makes a mistake, they put them behind you or whatever, you stay in your position. I've moved all the way to the front before through what I call attrition. That's just cars falling out and spinning out and going to the back. You've never actually passed anybody that night. I mean, it can happen. But so I think the next race is that. But then at a certain point, it's going to be, it's like we're going to have to start focusing on hold your line. If that's your line, and if you're on the inside and you're staying on the inside, they can drive all over the place. But you don't go to the infield, or you don't dodge out of the way because they start trying to, crowd in on you. If you've got your nose up as far as them, or if you've got your nose up, past their door, you hold your line. That car will be okay. They get up on the side of your car. Don't worry about it. We'll wash that off. We'll replace that sheet metal. But I don't think that's the next race. But you don't pass people until you got to, go through that and learn that part. And so that's coming too. How do you coach that? How do you teach that? I don't know. It seems like back in the late 90s, early 2000s when I started, I think being in my 20s really helped there because I just did not care. And it was running steel bodies, and I was beating them out every Monday morning. And it was rough. And, and of course, I was racing at racetracks that, everybody would, they'd turn that last bush light up and slam it on the ground and jump in their cars. And this is different, and so I don't, it's like, I don't want to tell her I don't want her to be aggressive, but at the same time, it's like, you've got to stand your ground, as you start racing and you start passing people, you have to understand, that this isn't a courtesy thing. And I don't think Rachel's got courtesy in her. She's very outspoken, kind of person, that is just wonderful. My kids are great. They are. And, but just her personality leads to like that racer type mentality of, she's confident and she knows what she's doing and she will tell you exactly what she thinks. And so I think that's going to translate well on the track too, to, if that's her line, she's going to be like, no, this is my line, but we'll have to transition through it, and I'll have that on video because that'll be great to watch. But hold on, what do we got going on here? Emmett said, set her down with the in-car video to help coach her and show her what she's doing wrong. You're exactly right. I've got all of the raw footage and everything, and me and her need to sit there and go through like the whole race, with all of it. And then what did Who Knows say? Who Knows said, I understand starting in the back, but if she can go forward, let her go. She has some car control at the end of the night. If she isn't around anybody, she is just making laps. You're right. And I think that's the next. I think that's, when we go back out, it's, you focus on it, get up there, and, it's like, because, you can pass some cars and, they're just on a different line than you. And if you're faster, you got control of the car, you just go forward. I think for a new racer, it's probably harder when you're racing, when you've got cars that they aren't under good control. If they are all over the place, jockeying around and stuff, that's a little scarier passing those. And I tell you this, the most fearful I am racing now is lapping slow cars. When, I am just running at a blistering pace and you're on a full dry slick track, but your car's hooked up and you're just rolling down through there. And I've had a couple of times where that, I would just draw up because you've got somebody, right in your door, or you've got that second place guy right there, and you're coming up on lap traffic. And I mean, you are rolling up on lap traffic, and that, they can make a move and they can change lanes because they're going slower, and you're going so much faster, you can't shift as fast as they can. And man, that's the most nervous I get is when, it's like when you go shoot by somebody. Had one time a couple of years ago, I had a car at Harrisburg. I was about a half track out in first place, and I had a lap car just took a right hand turn to exit the track. He was slowed way down, and he was on the inside lane. And it was one of those deals where that the outside straightaway just rolled off into the pits. One of those deals where you don't have a back wall. And he just thought wasn't nobody there. And I mean, it's like, it was a dumb move, but I wasn't mad about it. It was just that novice racer dumb move. And I guarantee you, he probably, the damage that his car got from it, because it smeared down the left side of my car because he just turned, and there I was. And the thing about it is, I wasn't right on him. I was over like a whole car width apart from him. And so when he turned, he got the nose of his car turned around so that like he caught, all of my door bars right behind my, my left front wheel. And so all those door bars that are behind the sheet metal, but they kind of protrude out, they just wiped the whole front of his car off. They took tire, wheel, just spun him around. And made a mess out of my car, but nothing like his. And I didn't even say anything because I'm like, he knew what happened. He knew what he'd done, and I guarantee he'll never do that again. But and then we had to do a lot of work on our car too. But enough about that. Let's see what else we got going on. I've been working on my crate racing engine, so I'm finally getting pistons and rods and everything back in it. Since we're not racing this weekend, I don't have to work on the Camaro. I will hopefully have this thing done this week. It's just slow. I am so ready to go racing, y'all. But I've got everything I think that I need, and putting up. I'm sitting over here bouncing on something. But yeah, I'm sitting here putting this together, putting the rods and pistons in it, filing them all out. Hey, I want to show you something too. And I had bought a piston ring compressor. You got to be careful of the cheap stuff. And I've got this Proform. There's a lot of racing stuff that's this Proform, and this is your overseas low budget stuff. I'm gonna show y'all something that will blow your mind. All right. So you see that says 4060 on it, 4060, okay? So 60 over for a small block Chevrolet. And these are my Matoyos here, calipers. And on the bottom, so that's the bottom of it, it's supposed to be 60. And that bad boy right there, if I can, that bad boy right there is 4090. I ain't never seen nothing like that in my life. Anyway, and yeah, and it's on the box. That's etched in. You gotta really watch this stuff, y'all. And so anyway, so that was the cheat. So I got back and ordered a Eckerly & Childs Extreme piston ring, and none of this is sponsored, y'all. This is just me trying to get the deadgum engine done. But anyway, yeah. So I got this one that's from them, and it is spot on. It is exactly 4.060. So yeah, I went to drop a piston into it, and it didn't pull the rings down hardly or anything. And I'm like, something is wrong. And so when you're getting this stuff and you're going through it and everything, and I'm low budget. I really try to watch my nickels and dimes and stuff. But like this right here, this was like $35, and this was $50, and this was worth it all day long. So you can nickel and dime yourself to death. And of course, I let too much time go by because I had gotten this, but then I was waiting. Robert was doing me up another block and everything like we talked about, and So I didn't actually start trying to use it until after the 30 days and went by and I couldn't return it. So if anybody has got 90,000 stuff, which I don't think, because I mean there's 65 and 70. Well, yeah, maybe on LS. Might need to hold on to it. On a 6.0 or a 6.2 LS, I think maybe there's some size you can bore up into that. If anybody knows, let me know. It may be worth holding on to. Because, you know, like a 400 that you start at 4.125. So I've been working on that, and I'm going to get it done this week, and I got a little more time. Anybody got anything? Of course, like I said, we covered Rachel and everything, what was going on this weekend. I'm 4 weeks away from us getting to race the cool car. I really want to focus right now on getting, I'm going to try to get Rachel back to the racetrack a couple of weekends that, when she's able to, try to get her to several races while I just work on having mine ready. I really want to be further along on the cool car than I am. But I got set back on several things, and I'm several weeks away from going through it. And I want to do the videos because we're changing all the setup and everything, and I need the car back, back fully loaded, engine training, everything in. We're going to get it back on the scales and change out all the springs and shocks. We're going to make videos on that as well. That's going to take time. Q&A wise, if there's anything, if we want to spend a couple of minutes here, anybody got any questions for me? Whether it be, I'm a lot more knowledgeable on leaf spring setups. Y'all know that I'm working on becoming knowledgeable on my coil spring setups and stuff. But it don't matter where it is or anything you've seen in the videos. Just have at it. We got some time here, and shoot, and what you're looking for. Y'all know we've been doing the videos. Where I went back and I did stagger and air pressure again, and like that, like we had done that like 2 years ago. I'd started, but I really wasn't like targeted. I was just like going through and showing. And so then I went back and I did that video trying to like really make it just about, I'm going to talk about stagger, I'm going to talk about air pressure, I'm going to talk about wheel offset in a way that, like if you're starting out, you understand. And then I turned around and I tried to do scaling. I think I could have done better on that scaling, because I was going through and showing scaling, but I still didn't. It's like maybe I should have went through and showed like lid placement and changing up the car, and like what does it mean? Or maybe that needs to be another video, like when you're looking at scale numbers, because a lot of the conversations that I got with people is about, when you've got scale numbers that say this, what do you expect, on the track from the car? We have a lot of conversations about that. Like for me, I know that, if you're in a class where that you're restricted on your, on your rear percentage, that puts you at a serious disadvantage. Like if you only have 50% rear, it puts you at a real disadvantage. You'll see a lot of those cars where those guys will set up a lot higher bite on their left rear because of that. It's like like your whole setup becomes different because of that. So like if you can't run but 50% rear, then you're not necessarily going to be sitting here at 53% left and, 150 pounds of left rear bite. It's like those numbers don't work together, and probably like I need to figure out how to lay it down. Let's see. Yeah, Justin Platts, glad to see the Camaro making laps again. Me too. Kind of hurt my feelings for me not to be the one making them, but you gotta move on. You gotta pass it along. You gotta build new racers. You gotta build a new generation. And I tell you, give Rachel a run and let her do this and get really good at it. I got a grandson coming up, and he is gung-ho, and we're not go-kart racing. And the thing about it is if we go-kart race or something, that that's all we could do. That is as absorbing a racing program as street stock racing, and just as expensive, And so like, we're not doing, the micro sprints or the go-kart racing or anything with him. And he's at the age where he could be in it. But yeah, possibly I could see down the road where hopefully we build another racer way down the line with him. But I'm glad to have my Camaro running. I'm hoping, and I still, last night, Nick Wright, a friend of mine, they own a huge salvage company here local and everything. And I was on him last night. I'm like, Nick, have you not got a metric frame? I need a metric frame because I've got to be ready to go. I want to build a metric car and everything. I built my 112 inch, and now that I've built my 112 inch, I definitely could do better. I like I like the technology and the way I did it. Now I want to go back and do it again on a 108-inch wheelbase and really dial it in, because when you have an idea and then you build a car from it and everything, you work it out on paper and you figure out you've got your blueprint, and then reality smacks you in the face when you actually get it all together. And so there's all kind of things that it's like, if I could do that over, I would do that, but it would finish out 10 times better. So like and he was like, oh, things are starting to get rare. And so I got to find a metric car, because next winter I want to, have the orange car set aside. And then next year I want to have on my chassis jig a 108 and be building it, a 108-inch metric car. And that's really, because that's where I love building. I do. I love building. Oh, and let's see. Tommy Hitt said, I think I might have found Dave Adams' tight condition, found out that the rear axle housing was bent, making the car hard to push, and making the car hard to push. Then found out that it had trail in the right rear tire. Rear is ordered. Yeah, trail in the right rear tire. Well, that's okay. But, if the axle's bent doing it, that's a problem. I agree, Tommy. That is. But, he's not bad. Y'all ain't looking bad. So from what I've seen. And Mike talked to Ashley. He's still got one I brought down there. We worked out a deal with him to let him hold on to it, but it might part with it. I may have to ask Ashley if he wants to sell it, because I got to come up with one. I just need a bare frame, because I'm not going to use any suspension or anything off of it. It'll be, all the control arms and everything will be aftermarket. All right, y'all. I think we're going to wrap it up. And like I said, I really appreciate the support. Really appreciate a lot of interaction on the videos. The thumbs up and stuff really helps on the YouTube algorithm. They see people thumb up and comment and stuff on the videos, and then they turn around and they promote that video. Like, they'll put that video out for more people to see it in their list, as a video that's, suggested watching, based on you interacting or watching or thumb up in the video and stuff. And so we're getting a lot more interaction than we have in the past. And so we're growing at a really fast clip now. And, y'all are the reason why. So when you take and everything, we do the links and everything on Facebook. And everything. When you hit share on these videos and stuff, that's huge. That makes them just take off like a rocket ship when you do that, because YouTube sees that and they're like, oh yeah, that's a hot video that's just come out, and they see people sharing it, and then they push it out to more people because of that. So I very much appreciate it. I will see y'all. Hopefully the next video we know won't be racing, and unless I work out doing a next learner video, and the Dominator, the Dominator video. I love those Dominator noses. But hopefully the next video, if nothing else, next Sunday, I'll have this engine together, and I don't know if I'll have it by next Sunday or not, but I want to do a what it cost. Like, once I get it all bolted up and everything, maybe on the draw race board, like, do a what it cost. If I can't get all that together, then we may just do where we just go over and show everything all together and what it takes. But that's where my head's at with what I want to do. But if you got suggestions of what you're looking for, hurry up now, because usually by Monday, Tuesday, I've got to be videoing if I'm going to be out by next weekend. All right, appreciate y'all. See you next time.